Mr Speaker, I rise to speak in the third reading of the Financial Service Providers Pre-Implementation Adjustments Bill, and as you know, the Labor Party supports this bill. It will simplify the implementation of the Financial Advisors Act, reduce costs, while encouraging public confidence in the industry, and the amendments discussed this morning will strengthen the Financial Advisors Act 2008 and the Financial Service Providers Act 2008, both changes which were brought in by the previous Labor government, and ensure that they serve their purposes. It's public confidence in this industry and robust consumer protection that is vital today, and we must restore confidence and trust to the financial services sector. I just want to comment on a couple of things that have been brought up this morning by myself and others, and I guess just underline them and their importance. The first is around standards, promoting standards and accountability in this profession, and a number of other professions have been mentioned in the House this morning, such as the legal profession, the medical profession, accountants, police, essentially the professions that you expect that when you go and seek advice and ask for information, that you know that you're going to get quality and you know that there is going to be some sort of standard attached. Financial advice should be in that league, and hopefully with the passing of this bill it will have that standing. The other thing that I'd like to mention is the importance of financial literacy, and that's been talked about as well. Unfortunately, it's been talked about in terms of it being a problem rather than having the solutions to it, and I think that as a country we owe it to the people of New Zealand to really grapple with this issue seriously and work out how it is that people can become more financially literate and what is needed to make people so. And while that discussion was happening this morning, I thought to myself about the medical profession and the increasing trend, I suppose, for people to self-diagnose and go on to the internet and Google their symptoms and come up with their own diagnoses. And I'm not being overly critical of people for doing that, because in many cases it actually does produce some results and interesting discussions with general practitioners and other specialists. But the issue around people who think that they know best around financial matters and the range of products out there and how their investment is going to be, turn into a bigger investment, is a big issue, because it's actually not something that people generally learn at school, and perhaps it should be more learnt at school. And there are some serious issues about where you intervene in society to enable people to have more information about the quality of how to best use their money. So I certainly think that financial literacy is a major issue in our society right now, and we do need to grapple with it. The third issue is around the vulnerability of investors, particularly the people that we've been talking about who have been most affected in this issue, and they're the mums and dad investors, the people who don't have a lot of money, and often it's their life savings that we're talking about. And I want to draw attention, as a number of my colleagues have, to the private members bill by my colleague Carol Beaumont, the Labor spokesperson for Consumers Affairs, the Credit Reform Responsible Lending Bill, which is really addressing this issue and taking it a step further around how to protect these people from loan sharks. And there is an extraordinary amount of ripping off that's going on in our society at the moment by moneylenders to the people who are being most affected, who can least afford to be affected. And it would be, and when you take into account the extraordinary amount of cooperation and collaboration that's occurred with this bill in the Commerce Select Committee and across this House, it would be a show of goodwill if the government on the other side of the House actually showed that it actually had some responsibility around this issue and showed that it was prepared to consider the importance of this and take it a step further. And it would be good to note that there were some members across the House actually listening to what I'm saying right now. Mr. Speaker, the Commerce Committee has focused on protecting retail consumers and on enhancing confidence, and the Commerce Committee's done an extraordinary amount of work in this area, and I really do want to pay tribute to the Select Committee and all the officials, as has been done a number of times in the House today, but it is really important to do that, particularly the Chair, the Honourable Leanne Dalzell. As I said, focused on protecting retail consumers and on enhancing confidence and encouraging participation in capital markets. We were conscious throughout the Select Committee process to remain mindful of the harm that the legislation is intended to address and the need for a regulatory response to be proportionate to that risk. And I believe that's been achieved, and it's been achieved after a lot of hard work by all involved. So this bill will ensure that the public are protected from people like Neville Kent, a Timaru investment advisor mentioned earlier, who just last week was jailed and banned from being an investment broker after offering and allotting securities to members of the public without a prospectus or an offerer's statement. And worst of all, he was convicted for stealing around $100,000 off clients. And as you have also heard, this bill is about protecting ordinary investors like Tom and Anne Carwood, aged 78 and 75. They were forced to walk away from their home after losing everything in blue chip investments. And this couple, as has been reported in the New Zealand Herald, like so many, weren't foolish with their money, but rather misguided by the financial advice that they received. And similarly, Colin and Bev Mossop, who after the blue chip failure found that they were devastated after many years of hard, honest work, and said, for our future financial stability and enjoyment of life have been shattered. When blue chip collapsed in 2008, it was outside our regulatory system, and more than 2,000 investors were owed more than $84 million, and founder Mark Briers has been sentenced on 34 charges, most of them relating to inadequate financial reporting, such as failing to complete or sign off company accounts. His case has been well documented. He's been banned from being a director or manager of a company for 5 years, which is the longest period possible, and ineligible to run a company until May 2015. As Leanne Dalzell has said, this law will capture the blue chips of the future. This bill will allow the Securities Commission to bring them into the system, and I hope that this bill will today send a real message to financial advisors in the financial sector so that we can truly restore confidence in that sector. It plays an important role for businesses to raise capital, and this legislation is about protecting ordinary investors. The sector is supportive of this bill today. It was apparent from the submissions heard before the Select Committee that the sector itself wants and understands the importance of reform. Finally, I again want to thank the hard work of the Commerce Select Committee, particularly the Chair. The Select Committee process was inclusive, and such an open and transparent process with stakeholders and officials makes this bill what it is today. It won't solve all the problems in the financial sector, but it promises to make a difference, and I want this bill to protect the blue chips of the future, to reinforce public confidence in this industry with robust consumer protection. We must restore confidence and trust to the financial services sector. and I commend this bill to the House.